I finished my first character art series. Wow, did I learn a lot. Made a lot of mistakes too, which is why it's been a while since I've made a video. But have no fear, I will pass on the knowledge, and who knows, maybe I will inspire you to create your own art series or art series. Hope I'm saying that right. Anyways, this was to date my most ambitious project. So without further ado, let's get started. My 3 biggest tips for character design. Welcome back, artists. I'm Garrett and this is GB Brush. Before we get into my tips and time-lapse, let's quickly acknowledge the current events. If you follow me on Instagram, you'll have noticed that I have gone back to traditional. That's right. After 12 years of studying a huge array of different art forms, I've ultimately come full circle back to the fine arts. With that, I'm quite happy with my latest oil painting. You could see me on Instagram at GB_brush. I will most definitely make a video in the future about that colossal project. If you want to see my more day-to-day activities and day-to-day projects, follow me there. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe to this channel here on YouTube. It definitely helps a lot. But enough of that. It's time for the 3 huge tips. So some quick backstory on how I came up with the concept for this project. I actually started with the sketch that I had made when I was brainstorming for a different project, surprisingly. But that project didn't actually turn out that great in my mind. Who knows, maybe I'll revisit it in the future. That's one good thing about digital art, is you can always keep tinkering. That's a good thing and a bad thing, if you ask me. Anyways, I digress. I liked the energy and cute kind of character in this sketch, so I sat on it for, well, actually, I sat on it for years. One day, I was scrolling through YouTube, saw some cool futuristic jetpack technology, and boom, I had jumping boots. What if I suddenly made a jetpack boots? Now, we'll have to come back to how I formulated the 3rd character later, but until then, let's get started. Engage time-lapse. Tip number 1, brainstorm. It may seem basic, but brainstorming I found to be a crucial step to creating my newest characters. Also, in an art series, you need to have an arc or through line, something to visually connect the groups of images. I found the best way to figure that out is to write it down. Writing forces you to organize your ideas, and that could improve your work. And it could also save you time making changes down the road. As well as designing and drawing, writing forces you to also dive deeper into the concepts, which of course will also improve the overall outcome. Write about the world you want to create, lighting, atmosphere, mood, as much as you can think of. Make notes on the art style you want to use. For this project, I kind of was going for a Overwatch meets Charlie's Angels, something like that. Or if you want to make changes to your existing style, you're definitely going to want to put that in the brainstorming process also. Figure out how the character or characters relate to the world or to each other. What's the backstory of each character, and what visual through lines can be made to connect the different elements of the work or the works. Background, secondary figures, costume pieces, etc. So for this project, the brainstorming notes I wrote for tackling it included things like not too distant future technology, the 3 boots, bright colorful landscapes, different locations and lighting for each character, different races for each character, and the different character traits like land, air, and, wait a minute, sea? Do I need a 3rd character? The 3rd character, the lifeguard Allie, I discovered her through the brainstorming process. As I dove deeper into the concepts, I realized 2 characters was limiting. I also started to think about how would the pieces look physically on the wall. It would look better with 2 vertical portrait mode characters and a horizontal landscape character in the middle. And then once I made that decision, land, air, sea, suddenly I started connecting other dots. Dawn, afternoon, dusk, forest, desert, tropical coast, cute, beautiful, sexy, mechanic, park ranger, lifeguard. You know, the project started to click as a whole and in a way that could never have happened without the brainstorming process, which brings me to my next tip. Tip number 2, organized research. So I had jumping boots and I had flying boots, but what kind of boots would a lifeguard need? Boat boots? I needed to dive into some research to fully realize my grand concept and to make the future technology elements specifically more believable. You know, I've never drawn technology that doesn't exist before, so I kind of had to flesh those out more with some research. So I searched for more information on new types of surfboards, jet skis, and so on until I landed on hydrofoils. I also stumbled onto sexy dancing roller skate girls, and after a deep dive on that front, I decided to merge the 2 concepts together into like a water skating lifeguard. Oh yeah, I liked that concept. But why do I specifically say organized research? Why not just say research? Well, that's because you might find that it's super easy to screen capture a ton of visual reference images when you're going through this process, and then you have too many things to look at when you actually get to drawing. This happened to me a lot and it would just slow me down. I recommend that you do yourself a favor and take the extra step of organizing your research. For this project specifically, I had all of my reference images for each character in folders labeled according to the visual through lines and elements that I had already brainstormed. For example, folders for landscape reference, lighting, clouds, future tech, costumes, hair, casting. Come to think of it, I pulled a lot of these researching tactics from my days studying theater design at UCLA. So, not a complete waste of time, I guess. But I had an organized reference folder in the same format for each of my characters in the art series. And that helped me keep everything cohesive, as well as not spend too much time on one character versus not the same amount of time on another element of another character. Which brings me to my final tip. Tip number 3, make a workflow. A workflow is, of course, a series of steps to accomplish a project. For creating character art, everyone has their own process or follows somebody else's recommended process, which there's nothing wrong with doing that. I've done that many times. At the end of the video, I'll show a rough workflow I used if you want a basic starting point. But regardless, following any workflow can make a daunting task seem more plausible, for one. For 2, it'll save you time because once you move from one goal to the next, it'll help you not to move backwards. And moving backwards is the enemy for complex projects. For example, if you dedicate a step in your workflow for thumbnailing compositions and you find a composition that you like, then you start the next stage, sketching. And since you passed the one step already, it'll help curb you from the allure of going backwards and endlessly playing with other compositions. An extra perk, you'll find that a lot of your artistic style will be determined by your workflow. And if you establish one, then you'll have a good starting point to then adjust and play with as you make future projects and try developing new styles or developing your current style. Looking at this project specifically, I adjusted my workflow slightly for each of these characters because I got smarter. My mother is so proud. The first character, like I said, I already had a sketch, so then I had to figure out the composition. But because I did it in thumbnail, I went forward and backwards a bit too much, to be honest. In the second character, I didn't have the right reference images, and so I needed to change her costume many times before moving from the sketch into directly laying the flat color section. And in the third character, I thumbnailed different poses and moved to the sketching from there, but then I needlessly made a line art layer that was mostly a waste of time. One last note, if you're working on an art series like I was here, having a workflow will also help you to keep that visual through line we were talking about earlier. So for example, having reference specifically for each of the characters' boots helped me kind of figure out even a technological through line, because there's a few different ways you can draw technological elements. You could have a gritty kind of Blade Runner future tech, or you could have a clean kind of Disney future tech or Pixar future tech. So I was thinking about those things when I was pulling my research and reference images for everything. And because I had all three projects brainstormed and referenced at the same time, I could think about visual things like that all at the same time. So in conclusion, an example workflow that I roughly followed to create these characters, not exactly, but you can still take it or leave it. I didn't want to leave you hanging with just theoretical tips, so here's something concrete. Number 1, brainstorm. Number 2, research and organize your reference. 3, thumbnail compositions and poses. 4, sketch. 5, redefine or flesh out details of the sketch. 6, depending on the art style you're going for, you can make a line art layer. I recommend only doing this if your artistic style is going to show the lines. If you're going to do more of a painting style like I ultimately did here, where you don't see the lines, I would skip this part. Number 7, flat color. So establish what color palette you're using, get the flat colors down. These are neutral tones. And then on top of that, number 8, lighting. Think about the light and the shadow. Again, I'll have to make another video about this, but you know, something to start with. Number 9, final details, and 10, extra polish. You know, maybe you add a lens flare, maybe you paint a few more birdies in the background. It's up to you. It's your world, all right? There you go, 10 kind of steps in a rough workflow. Simplify, make it more complicated, do whatever you want with it. It's yours. Were my tips helpful? Were my characters cool? Did I cover too much? Because I kind of feel like I covered too much. Drop in the comments what you guys want me to prioritize filming next time, and stay tuned because I will be making more in the future. All right? I'll leave it at that. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and till next time, keep making that art. Adios.